And we're pre-recorded.
And we're pre-recording. Okay, I'm Benjamin Hart.
And I'm Andrew Esquire.
And we are Bangkok Bros some days. We're also maybe doing this for Integrity Legal Network.
It's in the middle. This is one of those weird topics because the thing is with Thailand and with a lot of the issues. It overlaps
the Venn diagram of all the things that we sort of have in common.
Because if you're a bro coming to Bangkok, you might be interested in cannabis. But also, if you have a business idea or concept or whatever else, you might also be interested in it. You might be interested in it if you're considering a visa to come over here. Maybe you have some glaucoma that you want to treat.
Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
Like what's that?
Yeah.
What's that? What was that? Entourage?
Maybe.
Where it's like he goes to the medical cannabis doctor and he's like, I don't know what to tell you here. And he's like, and he just starts listing stuff. And it got laid in the list. It's like Crohn's disease. And like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
you can treat it that way. You know?
can treat it that way.
I mean, to be all serious, I remember I was in California, 9 years ago. Mm-hmm. And they were prescribing it for cancer treatment. And apparently it was very effective, in the pill form.
Look, let's be honest. It's also arguably one of the coolest, in my opinion, recreational drugs on the planet as well. Let's just be adults about it and say, like, booze is. Look, alcohol has medicinal properties.
It's historic, yeah.
It does. Well, it does. There's medicinal alcohol.
Yeah.
Like they use an alcohol swab when you go and get an injection.
Right.
You know. Then you've got. I mean, explain to me what's medicinal about tobacco.
Not much, really, at all. I mean, actually, it's more easy to make an argument for opiates in terms of like medical treatment, in terms of like pain.
Oh yeah, opiates you can.
Right, we use morphine for a reason.
For a reason.
Right,
yes,
it's effective.
It works as a painkiller.
It's highly effective.
If you want to saw someone's leg off, you can do it on some morphine.
Right.
You know,
so I mean, but if you think about jumping from booze to morphine, cannabis is even more innocuous than either actually of those two. In terms of look, to me, I've always said, look, how many.
I would say cannabis is orders of magnitude more innocuous
than alcohol.
Than alcohol, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
So especially since there's multiple ways to ingest it, right? There's ways to mitigate the effects of smoking if you want to consume it in another fashion. But I guess we're going to, as applied this, we're going to.
Button up or.
It's all right. Button up, button down, it's all good. Yeah. But, we're going to as applied this to Thailand. So what's the news? What happened?
Okay.
What's going on?
Let's just do a full roundup. Because, I mean, I've been following this since the get-go. Like, if you want to go
You're kind of the guy.
Yeah, kind of. If you want to go into, like, the proto-cannabis years, when literally the generals were, and it was the generals. This was the old NCPO, the OGs, the old generals. I'll just call them that. They're the OGs, the old generals, okay? Like, they started this initiative and kind of were looking at, like, does all of this going after some of these lower level, like kratom is another one that is another one of these herb. I haven't gotten really as much into that because they clearly dealt with that in a prior iteration of all these rule changes. It's just been cannabis that's been the sticking point, and it's because it's had this in the U.S. primarily driven this narrative of it really being a narcotic, and that's ridiculous.
Well, that was out of the
really
60s with the Reefer Madness movie. And
that goes back to William Randolph Hearst,
right?
Who wanted he wanted to destroy hemp paper,
right?
Because he owned timber mills. That was primarily the reason he went after it.
Correct.
And then down the line, and then it got tied in. Like, it's one of those that, quite frankly, I don't think anybody really, like, it's the stuff that Hollywood films were made of, the, like, adult that really wanted weed illegal. I don't remember my grandparents and things caring all that much. I remember them being like, you don't need to be into that as a kid. But I don't remember, and they shooed me off of it as much as they would shoo you off of, like, alcohol or something.
Sure.
But cigarettes, if you mentioned other substances, they'd be like, whoa. Don't go anywhere near that.
Right, if you mention any other hard narcotic, coke or whatever else.
Other stuff. But like it's just been kind of ridiculous that it's been this castigated for this long. Without a lot of good reason. It's kind of been the trust the science of the last 75 years.
But it has been peeled back.
The arguments against it.
But it has been peeled back in the U.S. pretty much at large.
Well, no, but the problem I have with it is that the federal government is so pervasive that if you don't have it federally legal, you just are stuck in this dumb like limbo. Like I've talked,
but it's operating in this limbo. Right?
I agree. It's operating enough, but it could be operating so much better.
Right.
You know, it's just very. It needs to not be as opaque, and the intentional bureaucratic obtuseness needs to end. What are we serving here?
Right.
Weed is basically legal in America. If you want to get weed, you can get weed like
very
that.
easily now.
No problem at all.
Extremely
It's
easily
stupid.
now.
So all the feds are doing is being obtuse for really no good reason.
Right.
We've clearly at the state level effectively decided how we want to handle it state level.
Right.
And then even other nations like Thailand has taken a position.
Well, which is, by the way, I actually support that. If the federal government said, "Hey, we're the schedule thing, we're taking off the schedule,
it's off the schedule.
but you guys can decide if you want to make it legal in your state or not." That's fine, right? So if you want to have a puritanical Rhode Island or whatever else it is,
Kansas will be the last to go because Kansas always does this.
But I'm sure.
Who is it?
Okay, well, let me ask you this: you're back in Kansas, though.
Right.
And
William Allen White once said that Kansans would always vote dry as long as they can stagger to the polls, and nothing I've ever heard is more correct about us politically.
So you think that's true about marijuana as well?
Oh yeah, we'll be
Kansas?
the last.
But
We'll be the absolute last, and it'll be the dumbest thing. It's like how we got casinos. I used to work on the Indian Reservation Casino, one of them up in Prairie Bend, Potawatomi, and like I remember the debates over casinos and working at the casino, and we were all just like, "This is self-evident shit. Like you'll get tax money off this.
Right.
Do it or don't." But don't play all these bullshit political games.
Right.
And that's what they went off and did. And then we ended up kind of with the worst of all worlds because by the time Kansas got into the business of it, they were like second hind teeth in the market. You know what I mean? Like they had just missed the boat. And that's why I was so worried Thailand would make an error, a wrong step on this whole thing, because to turn back now would be disastrous. Other countries would just be like immediately legalized in order to pick up everything that we would like leave on the table for that.
Do you think, well, that's actually a really good question. Can I ask, like,
Sure, anything. Let's talk. Let's really
what
talk.
What other country do you think would step in Southeast Asia? Because here's the thing, forget about, because we've got North America, Canada, U.S., whatever, and you've got Central and South America where rules don't really apply. It's like whose islanders anyways. Sure. We're talking Asia here, especially East and Southeast Asia. Anything. I mean, in Korea, I've explained this. There's not a word to differentiate between marijuana and other hard drugs, really. Like it's baked into the culture.
Yeah. Korea,
right? East Asia, Japan, China. Right?
Korea.
So what I'm saying is,
the light from when Kansas legalizes won't hit Korea for another like 8 years.
So that said, I'm like, what other countries would it be? Cambodia? Would it be? I mean, who would pick it up? I mean,
Cambodia, in a sense, it already is kind of legal.
Right.
They never made all these weird rules and like got on board because they were kind of on the other. They were kind of unaligned. The bamboo curtain kind of was around all that.
It's not a 1-to-1 though, because you're not going to have the same volume of tourists and people that are coming in for it.
They can't sustain it over there because it's a different
economy.
A very different economy. You would not. It would not work the way that it would work over here.
Right. It's like
because you need to have industrial capability for the farm side.
Right.
And emphasis on industry.
Yes.
This is an industry, cannabis. This is not. I mean, I'm fascinated. I was back home in Kansas, and like I was talking to people at, we had a 4th of July party, and I was talking to various people while I was there. And the minute they were like, "Oh, so it's just like maize or something. Like you just grow it on your land, and you take it to the silo and sell it."
Yeah.
Like
it's a crop.
Yeah, it's a crop. And I was like, "Yes, it's a crop. That's the thing. It's a crop."
Yeah.
And then. But Thailand's the only country in the business of this crop in Southeast Asia, and has been for 2 years, long enough to build the infrastructure now. Mm-hmm. It's $1 billion market cap. It's already $1 billion market cap.
I think who else? Malaysia, Indonesia. I don't think Indonesia would go.
Malaysia might do it. You might end up seeing Malaysia looking a bit like the U.S., where like maybe at the state level over there, they do it. They do like they'll. oh, it's medicinal here.
Right.
You know, it's the cannabis for this or that.
Right.
You know, a lot of jurisdictions do a lot of wordplay. I'm really proud of Thailand for doing this right. If we're going to do wordplay, do it in Parliament. Get everybody in there. Everybody that needs their little things and this and that. You know, everybody's interests get weighed in, and we come up with a real law and handle it. I think this is great. I think this is a huge win for Thailand. This is a huge win for the coalition government, by the way. And this cannot be expressed enough. I'm so happy to see. I've been a little bit wondering if they can keep it together and really, you know, get something done. They have. This is a win.
And you're saying
It's
it
a
doesn't
win for
matter.
everybody.
It doesn't matter whether it's put under a medical rubric, a strictly medical rubric.
No, it needs to. This is why it needs to be put in front of Parliament.
Yeah,
because
sure.
I would make I refuse to get into this, first of all, dialectic that we have to have medicinal versus recreational.
Sure.
No one asked those questions about alcohol. No one asked those questions about tobacco. You know, they don't ask those questions about caffeine.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You know, and who doesn't imbibe on caffeine?
Every
You know
single
what I-
fucking day.
You know, and so I'm just saying, why is it being asked of cannabis when it's not asked of any of this other
Well,
stuff?
but we already-
which, especially in the case of alcohol and tobacco, your cost benefits against cannabis, I think you're going to see in the studies, you're way better off with, you know, with the dope than the booze.
Well, yeah, no, and I
know.
absolutely agree with that. But I guess getting back to the medical just for a second, right? I mean, I'm a very practical guy. I think of what the reality is. And the reality is, you know, you go down the medical line, it's going to be just like all the states in the U.S., like California was for nearly a decade, where you go into the shop and, you know, it's a face.
I see.
you
I
know.
think by the time now, like, it's going to take a while for Parliament to, like, because it's got to get on the schedule. We got a ton of shit to do. The session's
Sure,
going
sure.
through. It's already started. It's going to be earliest Q1 before we're dealing with a draft, a new
Q1
draft.
2025.
Yeah, my opinion.
Oh, wow.
I would think. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Could be wrong. Okay.
But I would go out on a limb on that one.
Okay.
As far as like a new, give everyone time to draft what they want. That's the cool thing about this Parliament. What they do is everybody comes in with their draft, and then they kind of all sit around. And sometimes an amalgam comes out, and sometimes
horse trading,
or sometimes just one crew's version will get the okay. And it kind of depends on the prevailing politics of the moment. But that's how the sauce gets made a little bit that I've
Okay.
seen. I could be wrong. That's not always the case. Don't put total stock in what I'm saying there. But that's kind of over the years how I've seen these things kind of play out once they start going into Parliament. They kind of get messed around. They get jockeyed around. People add stuff. People subtract stuff. Da da da. You know how they legislate.
Yeah. Sure.
It's just the legislative process. It's the
Sure.
legislative process. And this is great. You know, this is a lot better than just a few dozen people in a room with a PowerPoint and this is what we're going to do. No, we need to figure this out.
So what does this do for all those folks? 'Cause I got this question from a lot of people about, hey, I'm thinking about investing or starting a pot business. I'm thinking about getting into this industry. I'm thinking about investing in this. What does it do for those people, particularly foreigners, people outside Thailand with money looking to get into
Foreigners,
Thai
you
weed?
need to talk to me. I'm sorry, you do, because it's real different over here. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's going to change, and how it changes and kind of having an instinct, an intuition for how those changes are going to come. You need somebody that actually has been out here and knows what they're doing. And I see a lot of LARPing going on.
A lot of LARPing, live action role play, yeah.
A lot of LARPing.
Pretending to be the Pablo Escobar of Thailand
just
when
like
they're
some
out of
people where it's like
when
I'm
they're out of
seeing
Wichita.
Well, I'm saying, yeah. Well, I'm seeing some people where it's like I've been here a month and I'm going to chime in. It's like,
Right.
give it a
All
minute,
right, Haas. Yeah.
Like, and it's not chime in like.
Get a little mud on your boots first.
Yeah,
right?
well, just kind of a minute, like because I can tell it's not just I've been here a month. It's I've been abroad a month.
That's even worse.
You know, like I can
That's
tell with
even
some of
worse.
these folks.
That's
It's
even
like
worse.
I just got here, you know, and it's like I hate being that old guy, and so I'll be it anyway. But you kind of need to be around a minute before you start telling everybody how everything works.
Right.
I don't know.
No. And that's not. I don't know. I agree with you completely. I don't think you have the right I deal with this especially with the younger
You don't
generation,
get
the kids.
clout for it. You don't get the clout.
Well, no, hold on.
As
But
they say,
I get. Look,
whatever the kids say.
Ben. We've got people out there. I mean, forget 1 month. We've got kids out there that are 20s, 30s, early 30s that they go somewhere for a week and they think that makes them a subject matter expert on the entire history of a place, the politics of a place, and everything that's going on there because they went to a week, they went to the tourist spots, and they left. Right? That's the current generational thinking, or at least I see a lot of those guys. So I mean, 1 month of living here, yeah, certainly will think.
Well, it's useful and it's useful for what it is. It will give you an insight into what it is like to
be a new guy. To be a new guy.
To
out
be a
there.
new guy here. Yeah, and
Yeah.
and by the way, I've told
which
you
is
this.
a useful perspective.
I've told you this before. You want to keep that new guy shirt on as long as you possibly can.
I understand
I'm
why
a big
you.
believer
I
in that.
understand why you say that. There's a myriad of reasons. I understand.
No, you want to be a new guy for as long
I
as possible.
knew. No, I get the. How do you speak this much Thai? And then their eyes narrow, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, dude, lots of Thai. See,
Yeah.
I find it.
I'll be like, what is
I
it?
have the kind-
Swati Coop.
I have the kind of tie that the Thai girls like sit down like they're on their smoke break tie.
Yeah, you like that. You like to be on the bench with the.
Yeah, I do, because I get all the insight of what's going on. Dude, the Thai women run everything.
Well, and
over
that's
here.
how you hear about, so circling back to weed.
Well, the
I mean, that's
Thais
how
run
you,
everything over
That's
here.
how you
I
hear.
talk to everybody.
But right,
Like-
when you talk to people like that, what is the common Thai's perception of weed?
I think it's a lightly negative ambivalence in the
Lightly negative.
Well, in the sense that I don't think anybody that's truly trying to, keep their act together is going to sit there and say like, yeah, you need to smoke a lot of weed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like now,
Because to be fair, if you're smoking a lot of weed, you're not getting a lot of shit done.
no, you're not.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing would be said about alcohol.
Yes, no, that's also true.
Yes.
And by the way, if
And
you're
smoking.
right?
And even caffeine. It's
Yeah,
like,
sure.
hey, you do yourself a lot of good. I notice on days where I need to get amped up, my heart rate's going a lot faster. My blood pressure's up. Like caffeine has its downsides too.
Oh, yeah.
You have to do a cost benefit with these things, at the end of the day. So so lightly negative, but ambivalence and tolerance for.
Tolerance is something
That's key. That's
so key. It is big here. It's just I feel the tolerance. It's
Tolerance is not condoning. Tolerance is not acceptance.
no.
On any level. By the way, if you presume that you know what Thais accept versus what they tolerate, you are a very presumptive person. That is all I will say.
That is a very good line. That's a very good line because acceptance is a personal like I accept this is okay and I do not judge you for it.
Yeah.
Versus I'm gonna maybe judge you for it hardcore, but I'm gonna tolerate that it's happening.
Lots of things my wife tolerates. Few
right.
things she accepts about my lifestyle.
We have delved into dangerous water.
No, and that's all I'll say on the subject. I'm just saying, if you would like some analogical explanation as to what the relationship is between tolerance and acceptance, that's a pretty good one.
That's a very good one, actually.
But Thailand is very much like that. Thailand is unique in that way. I love it here for that.
Yeah, I actually woke up today, and when I was planning a trip to, I was telling Kari this before the show, I was planning a trip to Germany.
Yeah.
And I was like planning all this stuff, and I'm like, this is such a pain in the ass. I don't want to go here. I don't want to deal with the bullshit. I know it's going to be worse than last time I was here. I'm like, thank fucking God for Ben getting me into goddamn Thailand. Because, and I say it in a nice way, like I love it here. Thailand is amazing. Thailand is freaking great. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. I look out my window every day, even when it's pouring rain. I'm like, I love this place.
Yeah.
I absolutely
The
love
smell.
this place.
Once you get the smell in your nose,
it's
you
in
want
you.
it back.
And some people say, and I think it's very true. You either really like it or it's just not for you, right? I mean, that
my
seems
brother
to be
hit
very
Bangkok,
true.
never liked it. Has
Yeah,
never
I
liked
can
Bangkok.
very
And
much
I'm in love with Bangkok. Now, post-COVID, it's not quite what she was, but she's getting back. to it.
Once again, times do a change, Ben. But it's not always in a bad way. But and a lot of it is in the growth and the building. And my brother, he was just visiting again for 5 days, and we stopped over by M-Sphere, which wasn't even open last time he visited. Right, and I'm like, Thailand is still building. Thailand's developing. Gonna have the new MRT line put out.
Have you seen the new One Bangkok?
Oh yeah, that's math. That's like a city.
It's its own city.
Yeah.
It's a literal city.
It's only it's partially open now, right?
It's a city. It's like
Is it
it's
partially
open?
Partially
now.
open.
Yeah, the condos and stuff, you can live in it now.
Yeah.
And the other thing is we were trying to figure, like, we were driving by that thing for when because they knocked down old Lumpini Stadium. So the old boxing stadium is where that is. And I think you got here probably after they had knocked that down.
Yes.
But pretty close. In any event,
and they put stuff up quick.
Yeah. And no, they were in there a long time. Well, you couldn't see it, but they were in there a while.
I'm saying relative to the States.
I
do property. I did commercial property development.
Yeah.
You know, projects taking decades.
Yeah. So so this thing went up, but we couldn't figure out where they were going to put parking. We were just like, oh my God, this is going to be awful for traffic. They buried it.
Nice.
There's a whole city worth of roads in their parking garage down below.
Nice.
It's like, and do you remember when Elon Musk went on Rogan and said that, like, you can get, when he was talking about his tunnels idea?
Tunnels, yeah.
Which
the Boring Company.
I don't know if that's working or how that's working, but whatever. He can do him. But he brought up the fact that you either go vertical or you go down.
Yeah.
Like, and we actually, going vertical is pretty easy. You build airplanes, you just go vertical. Or you use it that way. But he was going downward. It's kind of interesting because the one Bangkok looks to me like it kind of adopted that sort of thinking where it's like, all right, we got to house not only all the parking, but all of, like, the fucking intersections and everything. Because of the amount of people that have to be in there.
Right.
It's a town worth of intersections. And like, again, it's really kind of a marvel.
And here's another one, too, the burying of the power lines. That's been a big one.
Power lines. Yeah.
That's been a very visible one.
That's not so much the power lines as the, that's more the media lines.
Whatever. I mean, you see that
some of it.
You visibly see less cables.
Yeah. They've been working on that for a while now.
It's a very visible thing, and when that happens, it actually cleans up the sight lines like a lot. I
kind of miss the old cables.
All right. I get the nostalgia effect.
Yeah.
I get the nostalgia effect, but
it's like I step into a casino now, and I remember the days when they had coin in, coin out, and everything was coin in, coin out.
Yeah.
It totally changed. I remember the weekend that went online in the casino I worked at, where we went to ticket in, ticket out, and it was like we were all in the break room, like going into PTSD or something, because it was like fucking with us.
Yeah.
Like, because you were used to having that, like, sitting in the background, just does it all the friggin' time.
Yep.
And then it's not there, and you really notice it when you're working.
Yeah, I'm
like,
sure.
It's weird.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But swinging back to weed, I'm sure that there'll be innovations in that sphere going forward.
It's already.
Because
it's
you've already talked about
roof.
You mentioned this before, but let me mention this again. I mean, like the strands, how quickly they caught up to the potency and variety and diversity of the types of strands you can get in the Canada or the U.S.
Oh no, we're over the top of all that now.
Yeah, I'm saying it went from basic to over the top of
which
that.
was kind of the
in
brilliant,
how long?
Well, 2 years.
Yeah,
it took 2 years.
2 years.
Quote Chuck Woolery, 2 and 2.
Yeah,
but
I mean that's better reverse engineering than I think even the Chinese can do. I mean that's like.
Oh no! Like the time, but you got to.
It's a crop.
The times were running the weed market back in the old days, man. And then everybody took their stuff, ran out, hybridized it, it all up, churched it all up, and the ties were like, "Yeah, we're taking that back." And that was one of the cool things. I gotta say, you know what? Call me what you will. That was one of the cool things Prayut did do. Was he was like, "Yeah, you can't have patents on the weed strains."
It's good.
Yeah, no, that's ties. And it was just like. Whoa, that was forward thinking, because now they got the crop. They're in the first mover advantage.
Yep.
Number one with a bullet, top dog.
That probably that.
I'm so glad everybody's come around to discussing it like this now.
That move probably is one of the things that helped save it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it got them invested in showing, hey, no, this is something that is benefiting ties.
Commercial property. Yeah. We're the only place in the world that I can see that is not having a terrible time in their commercial property market post-COVID. Thailand's is fine. In fact, quite lovely. It's really good, actually. And all the shops are very nice and pretty, and it's great. It looks good. I don't know how to tell people how many times this has been one of the better things for the economy.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
yeah, sorry, I don't mean to.
No. That's absolutely no. I think that, and I think there's room to even grow, and there's room to expand.
It's going to
and,
go through the roof.
You know,
it's just going to. It's and now now that we can talk about it with an eye toward making real laws on it,
and more certainty, right?
And more certainty. But then also now we can start talking about like certain industries, like certain kinds of products you can create,
right?
Like
Edibles,
processed products and things like that. Like there's just myriad.
Well, the big one, which is going to be interesting, is the crossover with the oils and the because for example, I mean, as you know, e-cigarettes, right, or
well, yeah, vaping's a weird thing. Vaping
but see, that's the nexus there, because that's super hyper popular in the West.
Hey, they know too.
Yeah.
They're aware.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I'm sure they're aware. I know, but there's another bridge,
like,
you know.
No, and they'll let us cross it when
it crosses
when there's enough money in it, probably.
Right.
Yeah, but see that you're getting into tobacco monopoly stuff, and that's different. But there will be, now that we can have a real discussion, and now that I expect, look, I have to wonder if the Trump campaign isn't looking over here and seeing some business opportunities. Because,
I imagine that.
I mean, I don't know nothing, but I would have to think they're sitting there going, look, we're walking back in with this dog shit economy we got handed by the last administration, which whoever knows whatever is anybody's fault in economics.
Whatever's going on
but
right
you
now,
better have a goddamn plan for the economy if you want to survive the first fucking 6 months of this next administration. And this is an easy point where it's just like, hey, if we legalize this, it's a whole new set of industry.
I could see Trump descheduling it.
I don't see why he wouldn't.
Right. I don't either. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Especially as he's a business guy and a real estate guy.
And he makes a lot of money. He's a business guy.
And he's one of these guys like Robert Kiyosaki that's constantly talking about cash flow on top of real estate.
Right.
Well, what better?
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
Yeah. No, you're right. I
got to imagine this is in Trump's wheelhouse at least. But let's leave him alone on it. He's got enough to think about.
That's a separate episode. That's a separate topic. That's all separate stuff.
But in any event, I mean, it shows just how important the issue is.
Well, I like it. You know, what was it? The different economies will have like their like, what do they call it? Like,
that's comparative advantage.
No, you're right. The comparative advantage. Be like, oh, we're the K-pop economy. We're the this economy. We're that economy.
We're the CCR of Asia.
Right. Yeah. Marijuana diplomacy. You know, it's like, you know, we start
ACDC CCR of Asia.
They start giving people gifts of marijuana bushes and stuff. You know, like here's they give the cherry blossom. You know,
in all of Isan.
Here you go. Yeah. Present this. Like plant it.
Mr. Ambassador, please
plant it next to the cherry trees.
The Thais don't really want to joke about it like that. I don't think. I think they'll take a joke about it.
Right. Sure.
But it like, not to be funny about it, but look,
what I'm saying is it can be a positive.
It can be an amazingly
positive impact on not just the economy, but also the perception of their of them on a foreign scale. It can be a positive.
I think this makes Thailand look amazing. The rest of the world looks dumb as crap compared to Thailand on this issue. You know, they descheduled. They just did away with it. They let all the people that went to jail on those charges out, and they just said, we're done. And they just threw it down and walked away.
Yeah, I mean, the jailing of it was, and that's actually one of the things, just to bring it back. And this is like, I'm not trying to go full political, but, you know, Miss Harris, who's looking like she's going to be the top slot, one of the things she's most...
Was that slot, you said?
Slot.
Okay, right.
Slot,
okay,
top slot.
Yeah.
She, had that thing where she jailed thousands, tens and thousands of people over marijuana and gave them, serious prison sentences, right? And
I want to be clear. I kind of weirdly, this is a good. You brought her up, so
yeah. I just wanted to talk about the pot stuff, like. Right. Compare and contrast our free country where we are locking people up.
Well, but she was locking people up for truancy.
Well, yeah.
And she was looking at parents whose kids were truant.
Welcome to the nanny state.
But beyond even that, it's like, Kamala, do you understand a 17-year-old black kid in Compton, like wherever San Francisco or whatever,
Compton,
and
San
you're
Francisco,
telling
same
you're
thing.
going to lock his mom up because he's being an asshole? That's good policy? Like, come on. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard of.
It's once again, that's the world they want to create. But that said, what would you rather live in any state like that, or a place that is relatively free and doesn't and has a level of tolerance, not acceptance, maybe perhaps,
Right.
a level of tolerance for a broader swath of people, cultures, and activities, including economic activities, right?
Although there is a weird tie wall with it all, where it's like if you do overwhelm them with foreign culture, they will push back. It's a weird instinct.
No, but,
they'll kind of just be like, kaboom, like, no,
like I said,
I don't want
tolerance
that.
and acceptance, that difference there is material, right?
Right.
Like tolerating peoples from around the world is something Thailand has done for a very long time, very well, right?
Yes.
There are enclaves and communities of people from all around the world, Japanese,
there are.
Korean,
Yes, sure,
Chinese,
sure.
freaking Finns. I mean,
the
goddamn,
Ferengi,
you know?
the group of folks up in sort of the hinterland that Jim Thompson got his silk from. They were the first silk patterns that he started making the silk off of. They were from this tribe. They were Ferengi. It's literally spelled. It's like Fereng, but with E's and an
Somebody
I.
was telling me, and I know this is somebody on the internet, but they were saying farang was first used to reference French,
Français.
Français, and then it
Yeah,
came
but
over.
see, I think it's deeper in.
You
the
think it's Vikings? And,
I think it comes from Varang,
from the Varangian Guard,
which
yeah.
was the Eastern Empire,
Right.
Who would have interacted out here.
right.
And did interact out here.
Yeah,
They were aware of the ties and stuff. So, yeah, I could totally believe. Remember, the Danelaw got here. I've gone into the history on all this. The Danelaw was here first, actually, of everybody that was a seafaring nation. They're way back. It's like prehistoric, but they made it. You know, they probably kind of were shipwrecked, effectively.
Yeah, probably,
But they made it. And some got back somehow. Like, we don't really know as much as we think we do about some of that sort of almost mythical era of like Asia and all
But it
this
was
stuff.
more, but generally, I think it's fair to say, generally more accepting, especially when you compare to a lot of East Asian cultures like Japan and Korea, where, you know, there's kind of executions on site for, I don't know, up until modern history, right? You know, so there's a lot more of integration, a lot more of, maybe not integration,
but you got to remember, like,
Interaction,
Thai is an
interaction.
Indo-European language.
right.
So they're on, like, it's people migrating on land. That kind of people are very different people than island people.
Correct.
You know, very different kind of people.
Correct.
You know, and that's why you see like Japan. I never got that until I actually moved to Korea and I was talking to this guy.
Korea is now effectively an island, so.
South Korea is an island.
Yeah.
North Korea is its own island.
Yeah, that's fine.
In its own way.
In its own way.
Yeah.
Of
you
its
know.
own making.
Yeah, but South Korea is kind of its own making too. They
Yeah,
both-
that's true.
They
Fair
both
enough. Fair enough.
are what they are, you know, at the end of the day. But they think very island people, although they wouldn't think that they do.
Which is why, for
is
example, an
interesting.
issue like weed, I'm like, yeah, that's going to come.
Weed's never going to go. I don't think that's ever going to go.
I was talking to I was talking to a friend in
Ajumas
Japan.
are never going to allow
and
that.
especially like Japan, like that's not going to happen.
There's some things that the girls kind of actually run the show on the policy side quietly. Weed is arguably one of them. Ajumas in Korea
They're not going to go for that.
They're not
gonna
having
have
it.
it.
Now,
yeah.
I don't know about Japan.
Now maybe that could change in 40 years.
right? But I don't know about Japan. Japan, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's going to be a while, right? It's going to be a minute. When there's a generational shift, it'll have to be, you know, when people that are the millennials or Gen X are like the older folks that are running things. You know?
Yeah.
But
I imagine
that's 30 years from now.
I imagine the Hong Kongers are sitting there like, shit, we should have done this.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like I get like
Sure,
think
I mean, they-
or the Macanese like sitting up in Macau. They're like, damn it, we should have.
Well, you know
done that.
that was their
you know?
that was their history, and you know, moving forward, it's just looking at how can you repeat that history that made Hong Kong great, that made Macau great, that made these other places great, and repeat that somewhere else. And Thailand has an opportunity with marijuana as a component of that. I don't think marijuana is the golden bullet that fixes everything, but I think
No, it isn't a
it's an
golden
arrow.
bullet. It's gonna
in the-
be a
It's
problem
an
in
arrow
certain
in the
ways.
quiver.
Yeah,
I think for sure of something that can make.
It's going to have its own problems. I mean, enforcement. I'm deadly serious actually about this. People think I'm kidding around. I think if you sell weed to a kid, you should go to jail for like 90 days.
No shit. You know, I'm with you on that too. I completely agree. I think that's.
like,
By the way, I think the
just
same
check
thing.
IDs,
I
man.
think the same thing of alcohol and cigarettes.
Yeah.
Right. I would go like, look, you're selling any of that to kids, you should go to jail. Right. At least for a little bit. At least for a small period of time, you should at least go to jail.
Cigarettes. I was buying cigarettes when I was like 15 years old.
Doesn't mean it's right, Ben.
Okay, fair enough.
I was buying alcohol at 14 too.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it was right. But you know,
yeah. That said,
I mean, I
jail,
survived some packs of Old
jail.
English. Okay,
some jail,
so yeah,
some jail.
Yeah, a little bit.
I would actually like more jail time for booze and cannabis than cigarettes necessarily.
Cigarettes are more harmful.
Jail time.
Cigarettes are more harmful though, and more addicting, and with less benefit.
Yeah, but I think if you can get off of them, you actually gain something by having gone through.
You're trying to get, like that's not.
I'm making the argument. Yeah, I'll make that argument. I
don't know.
I get it. That's my own
Let's
subjective
just make it an even number.
It,
I don't like these comparative things where it's like, oh, we're 18 for one thing and 21.
Okay, well then fuck it. Yeah, do it 20.
Yeah.
Then 20's the number, and you can do whatever you want.
20.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that'll be across the board. Yeah.
For me, yeah, in my
You're
world,
saying, the age of 20 being the age of majority, where you can do whatever you want. Okay,
and that's basically Thailand. That's
okay.
that's age majority is 20.
Right.
18 is age of consent here.
Right.
Age of majority though is 20.
Right. So for alcohol and stuff,
20. Yeah. Weed 20. Even cigarettes are 20. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you think there's any? So, I guess casting your die. This is one of the things I want to kind of circle it around on. So we've got the weed thing. Is there any other things? Because we've had like psilocybin mushrooms. That
came through.
That came through, right? Is there?
Yeah,
any,
but that's very medically controlled. Those guys want that, and
yeah,
I don't blame them.
I'm not saying,
that is actually for very good research. Like they're finding that's having all
purely medical.
It's medical. I've never been interested in a lot of the psychedelics, and the people that talk to me about the ayahuascas and all of this stuff, I'm like,
that's what I was going to ask.
I don't need to see dwarves.
Couldn't
and shit. I'm good. Like,
see the Clockwork Elves?
I mean,
could you see ayahuasca or something getting through, or?
I don't know. I think the Thais would probably tolerate all of that on a level. But it would need to be like kind of controlled and within parameters. The one thing that made the Thais very unhappy at just at a street level, myself included. And so this is why I think that I maybe have some insight into it, was that it very quickly proliferated, and the Farang especially were not taking it upon themselves to fucking be discreet about it.
Yeah.
You know, I agree with the Thais on like, keep it off the fucking street.
No, and that should be that, but that's a matter.
You want to do your shit in private,
but that's a matter of enforcement.
It is a matter of enforcement, and there's also, well, where do you go? Well, create little smoking cafes, license them up. You got to show ID to go into them. Yippee-ki-yay. There's another way we can make money off commercial real estate, by the way. You know, I mean.
Yep.
So there's multitude ways to deal with that. But yeah, you know what? Really,
like cigar lounges, but pot lounges, and they've got some of those already.
Smoking lounges where it's just like, we all know that you just smoke like tobacco, cannabis, alcohol, probably all three, but it's a smoking venue.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
sure.
you just call it a smoking venue. You know.
I mean, if you want to do it, you go.
And you know what? We don't even really need. I think the market will handle that. That doesn't need to be enforced. It's just the market will break down, and it'll be, there's smoking venues, non-smoking. You know, a lot of bars don't like weed around them.
No, they have signs. They have signs, no weed, yeah.
Because they think it messes with the clientele, and they're probably not
wrong.
They're
probably not wrong. They're not probably not wrong about that at all.
You know, and I kind of get that the Brits, especially like the old Brits that like the pub life, and they like their pub.
The crusty old Imperials.
Them, and there are Americans that are like that want to sit in their fucking place.
Sure.
They don't want a bunch of kids coming in there and smoking dope in there. I get it. Like, I get it. Don't go in Dad's garage.
You sound like this is an episode like Footloose or something in here. You know, come
well,
on.
Look, here's what I have to say is, one of the coolest things that's happened in the last week, for better or for worse, whatever has happened, America looks pretty fucking Don Simpson 80s again, man. I mean, like, Donald Trump, Playboy Playmates, the whole bit. Like, whatever. You know,
it's looking better, yeah.
Maybe not the Playboy Playmates, but Axel Foley, you know, like, they're even talking about another Lethal Weapon, you know, whatever. Like, it's looking pretty cool again.
It's getting a little bit of its mojo back.
Yeah, you know. Sure. And so for this to sort of come on top of that, I think it's great. And you know
That's
what?
good.
This is what I like about East Asia.
Yes.
It's like the 80s out here.
It is like the 80s.
It's
true.
always been
90s,
like,
80s, yeah.
Yeah, like it's like
We got a little bit more technology, so
it's
that's
like
why it's
91.
90s. Yeah.
You know, it's Christmas 91. The Soviet Union, the curtain has gone down on them, and we're all just hanging out. That's what it's like in most of East Asia.
Having a really cool lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like I can't express to people enough that, you know, and even pot aside, just the lifestyle, it'd be great.
Oh, yeah,
so
forget
much
all that. You don't have
consistent
to-
happiness,
yeah.
whether or not you smoke pot or not. And if you do, that's great. That's fine. God
Have a
bless
ball,
you, right?
or don't.
Or don't.
You know,
Or don't.
And by the way, do not look. I was up near Cambodia. By the way, I need to start doing promos for this. We are running border runs. We're going to start running a border run service. Talk to Andrew about that too. If you're one of his guys or gals, whatever, and you need border run assistance, we're going to be doing that. We primarily will be doing up to Cambodian border, although we can do Myanmar border as well. Talk to us if you want to get into that. That said, I've been going out. I was up in Aranya Pratet when I was just kind of looking around because I hadn't been up there in a decade. Okay, and dude, there's no weed shops. This is a tourism-oriented thing, fundamentally. It's primarily at a retail level, very tourism-oriented. Look, the Thais that are primarily using this, and this is sort of like how everybody, I tell people, when you look at Thailand through the lens of Pattaya, that's like looking at America through the lens of Las Vegas. You're not getting the exact view, but
Even
what
worse,
I'm saying
that's like
is,
looking at America through Disney World.
is not the same. It's the same deal, or New Orleans, or New York,
In New Orleans on Bourbon Street.
yeah, New Orleans, Bourbon Street, which is a pretty cool place. I enjoy it. I love New Orleans.
It's changed.
Yeah, I haven't been back in a while.
Post Katrina?
I went back. I went to Mardi Gras the year before and the year following Katrina.
Wow.
Yeah, the direct post Katrina one was surreal because those people were not messing around. Come hell or high water, Mardi Gras, the show must go on.
Yeah,
It's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Those people are on. Coolest. The reason I fell in love with Bangkok was actually it reminded me of when I first drove into New Orleans. Truly, it's just, hand to God, that's the truth. It looked the same to me. It reminded me. It's sort of the New Orleans to my mind of Asia in many, many ways. But in any event, but trying to tell people this, it's like, I think everybody thinks now everybody in Thailand is sitting around smoking weed. They are not.
That's absolutely not what's happening.
97% of the Thais,
More.
much like with booze and much like with everybody thinking everything's like a go-go bar or whatever out here, 97% of the country, no.
It's
they're just
not like
into
that.
it.
Not at all,
Like
no.
I said, the perceptions are way skewed because there's a massive difference between tolerance and acceptance.
And also what you're interacting
And
with. right? If you-
condoning, there's like acceptance and then there's condoning. There's actively affirming your decision to do
Right,
something.
all of that stuff. Yeah, no.
You know.
Going into the pot shop, you're going to clearly find people that at least have a different level of tolerance and acceptance than if you go out on the street and you ask an accountant how they feel about smoking pot. Right,
Yeah.
like they're going to have an entirely different perception than the guy or girl that works the pot shop. Right. So, you know,
it's sort of like thinking that all Thai girls hang out in bars. In point of fact, the vast majority do not.
Well, yes, but
You
once
know.
again, you know,
And not to say it's good, bad, indifferent, or anything. Like
no, but
you'll
it's easy.
find
It's
good
easy
people
for lazy
anywhere.
people to make assumptions about
Right.
countries based on the minimal interactions
Sure.
they've had and the things they've seen on the internet that are the most extreme, which is what I deal with the younger generation. They've seen one or two clips from the internet, and that composes all of the entire country. Right?
By
They
the
think
way,
it's
why
soy
do-
11. You know,
Why
or
do
whatever.
all the young guys think all the girls here are ladyboys?
Well, that's because of the places they go, where they're at, who they're
They do
interacting
get
with.
they're like 10% of the
and
overall,
also
like-
on the dating apps, they are a significant.
Oh,
portion. But that's an
yeah.
entirely other thing, and let's save that for another episode. I think we're good on this.
I think
one,
we're good on
Sakari.
this one, yeah.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.